As WoW Classic's launch approaches, I have to wonder, what if WoW Classic is only the beginning? This is MultimediaJay Radio Style for Monday, August 26th, 2019. Let's start the show.
MultimediaJay Radio Style.
It really is too bad that small channels are treated the way that they're treated on YouTube. Because this is going to be one of those thoughtful, insightful, and downright original World of Warcraft commentaries that goes absolutely nowhere because this is a small channel. This is the sort of stuff that you're not going to hear from the big guys. This is the sort of stuff you're not going to hear from the huge channels. It's more the sort of thing that they would plagiarize. You know how the story goes. Small channel says something insightful and original. Large channels pass off the ideas as their own. So keep an eye on the date stamps, folks. It is Monday, August 26th, 2019. And you heard this here first. If somebody else lifts this idea, you heard it here first. I've been thinking a lot about WoW Classic, obviously, as the release date of WoW Classic approaches. But there's been some things that the big channels are not talking about that I want to talk about here. Specifically, the idea of WoW Classic being just the beginning. Now, I believe Bellular was the one that was talking about some kind of Classic Plus thing. When Classic is successful, and Classic, which right now has its own separate client, Blizzard is very strict on Classic is Classic. As a matter of fact, they're going to break some add-ons on purpose that we're slated to recreate something resembling the Looking for Group system, or the Dungeon Finder, that exists in modern WoW. Blizzard is dedicated enough to Classic is Classic to actually want to break add-ons that try and reintroduce modern features of the game. But who said Classic had to be the be-all and end-all for all this work that Blizzard's been doing for the last however many months it was? Yeah, sure. There's a client, and it recreates the existence of 2006 World of Warcraft, and Blizzard is pretty adamant about what Classic is supposed to do. But who said it was going to stop here? There's a couple of things that all the talking heads are not talking about when it comes to what Classic specifically is, and more importantly, what Classic has done for World of Warcraft. The signature achievement of WoW Classic is not bringing back World of Warcraft's 2006 experience. When you think about it from a game design perspective, what's one of the biggest things that has been missing in WoW for years? The pre-Cataclysm experience. And what has been the issue with bringing back the pre-Cataclysm versions of the old world zones? Technical stuff. Well, in order to get Classic working, Blizzard basically had to fuse together all this stuff from 2006 with semi-modern software. So the Classic that we're getting is more like a remake of the original World of Warcraft, not 2006 World of Warcraft made playable in 2019. There's things like graphical improvements and other stuff, and actually some of the features like Dungeon Finder were actually removed per the press releases about the add-on that's getting disabled, or broken on purpose, I should say, with an API update after launch. So what we're looking at here is pre-Cataclysm Azeroth compatible most likely with the modern WoW client. What's to say that as Classic launches, and as the operations team tries to keep the servers from being endless queues or crashes or whatever, I mean, this is basically, it's got all the hype of a new game launch. It might as well be an expansion launch. And it's definitely, from what I've been hearing, buoying interest in Blizzard products. But what's to say that while this is all underway, while this is, taking off and doing whatever it's going to do, that there isn't already internal discussion somewhere in Blizzard regarding integrating all this work they just got done doing into the modern WoW client. Now, how would that work? I'm imagining a situation where you go to create a character in the current version of World of Warcraft, And when you choose, Alliance or Horde, what race, what class, etc., you also get to choose where your story starts. What kind of hero are you? How seasoned of an adventurer are you? Do you want to start level 1 in your start zone before the Cataclysm, or with the current starting point, which is after the Cataclysm takes place? I can very easily imagine a world where, with the phasing technology and the time walking and stuff like, all those bronze dragonflight NPCs in all the zones that have huge changes take place, and you can go to the bronze dragonflight NPC to change versions of the zones. Imagine if there was somebody like that in your capital cities for your faction that would flip everything around to pre-Cataclysm Azeroth. So basically, from a game development perspective, imagine if Blizzard took all of this hard work that they just got done on a semi-modern version of the classic experience, and they integrated it into the modern WoW client. So if somebody wanted the pre-Cataclysm experience, but they didn't necessarily want to, say, roll a hunter and not have focus or something like that and have to go back to a mana bar or something, if somebody wanted to experience the pre-Cataclysm zones with today's technology and amenities like looking for dungeon and the transmog system, what's to say that couldn't happen? And for people that are past all of that, with what we've seen with some of the things like Party Sync that Blizzard's working on the PTRs, what if there was a feature not unlike War Mode in Battle for Azeroth called Time Walker Mode? And what would happen is you'd go to your capital city or whatever and you'd toggle this on, and now everywhere in the world that you go, you get set to the maximum level for the zone, and players that are actually at max level get phased out. So you have this experience where you're not just steamrolling everything because you're outside of the level range, but you have decided on your own to go into Time Walker mode. And basically, similar to the time walking events, we don't want to be looking at, skills going away or anything, but scale everything to whatever the maximum level is. Now, I have pictures of characters from World of Warcraft and ESO here. ESO currently leads the pack in support of player freedom when it comes to MMOs. You will find no greater MMO out there in terms of being able to do what you want when you want than Elder Scrolls Online. But some of this freedom is not necessarily ZeniMax Online trying to do a booyah over Blizzard with Blizzard's dated game design in World of Warcraft and many of the features that define today's MMOs being more half-cooked in WoW. It's more of a side effect of that's just what Elder Scrolls games are about. Elder Scrolls games, despite their Grand Theft Auto style beginnings where your character is always getting out of jail, are all about freedom. Your character gets out of jail and then just does whatever afterwards. Good, bad, some combination of the two. Who knows? It's all up to you. So some of the huge support for player freedom in ESO has more to do with it being an Elder Scrolls game than ESO becoming a competitive MMO versus World of Warcraft. That's just the way things are over in Elder Scrolls land. But that's not to say that Blizzard couldn't play a little catch up with some of this player freedom stuff and give people the choice to have the entire world matter again, so to speak, because it's not going to be effortless to go to all the old zones. And so if you had like a zone story, for example, just like in ESO, there are now zone stories in all of the leveling zones in WoW. So if there's a story you want to go see somewhere, no matter what level you are or how far past it you are, you could go back and go in at the top of the level bracket, be scaled down, and have it be somewhat of a challenge instead of steamrolling everything and boring yourself all over the place. Because, yeah, it's fun to be like, I'm unstoppable. And I remember some of those events back in the earlier days of World of Warcraft where somebody who was max level would basically be a raid boss for a bunch of level 1 gnomes or something. People would like do PvP or something and they'd have max level PvP friends as bouncers so that nobody could ruin the event. And basically you'd be the other faction and you would be like the raid boss for a bunch of level 1s or something like that. Of course, nowadays I don't think healers can heal right off the bat at level 1, so maybe it would be some other low level event or something along those lines. Plus, I don't know how much War Mode messes all of this up with the stuff War Mode's supposed to do. But with all of these ideas, being able to switch the world between pre and post Cataclysm, as well as Time Walker mode, what's to say that this stuff isn't possible? I think it's very possible, very viable, and it's probably under NDA, but I would not be surprised if there was somebody at Blizzard having these conversations in some office somewhere right now, even as Classic gets ready to launch. Now let's put everything together. All these features all at once will solve one of the longest running problems with the game, and that is the unfortunate fact that the timeline of World of Warcraft does not make any sense. You start out in Cataclysm, then you go back in time to Outland, then you go to Northrend, then you're back in Cataclysm, and you progress from there. Now let's imagine after the usual round of kicking against the bricks, against good ideas that they didn't think up, Blizzard does their usual thing, and after the dust settles, they sheepishly incorporate this into the game and then turn around and trumpet this as some kind of grand feature in some expansion that's coming out. Here's what you could do in a World of Warcraft game that had these features. You start your character, and you select that you predate the Cataclysm as your origin story. So you start out in your start zone in pre-Cataclysm Azeroth. You do your leveling in pre-Cataclysm Azeroth, and you turn on Time Walker mode so you can 100% complete everything there is to do in the old world experience. Then you go off to Outland, 100% complete that. Then you go to Northrend, 100% complete that. Then you come back, and the Cataclysm has happened. Now you can go through the Cataclysm world, start zones, rest of Azeroth, 100% complete. Then go off to Mists of Pandaria, 100% complete. Warlords of Draenor, Legion, Battle for Azeroth, etc., 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 for the complete World of Warcraft experience through the years of development and years passing in-game, so to speak. Through all of that, and get the full 15 years of development World of Warcraft experience as the story has progressed through the years. Maybe tie an achievement to that, as well as a feat of strength to having actually been a character from before the Cataclysm, before the feature to select it was added to the game. And here's the fun part. Someone doing all of this, going through all these old stories, all these zone stories, dungeons, raids, the whole 9 yards in Time Walker mode, 100% completing the game in the process, that is somebody who would be subscribed for quite some time. I don't even know what the speed run would be, to 100% clear World of Warcraft. I don't know if you could even put that on YouTube. But in terms of catching up to ESO, in terms of supporting player freedom without outright copying the game, I think that would just be awesome. Plus, it would add a Classic Plus, as I've heard it called, option to the product assortment here, where people wanting to see pre-Cataclysm Azeroth without having to go all the way back to the old systems in the Classic client, and wanting to have things like Dungeon Finder and Transmog and stuff like that, they can do that through modern WoW. And just some features that Blizzard already has in the game through the Bronze Dragonflight and the rest of it, and some other stuff that they would add. They could do that and not start big fights on the forums and elsewhere about how classic WoW Classic should be. I've seen the rants, and I've seen the arguments of the people with the hashtag no changes and whatnot. Do we really need all of that? I'll tell you one thing. Blizzard rolling out these kinds of features would basically get World of Warcraft to the point where it has some parity with ESO in terms of features and support of player freedom. You don't necessarily need to be like, oh, I'm going to full clear this gigantic 15-plus-year-old MMO once we pass the 15th anniversary. But let's just say that there's some story you never got around to in one of the zones. Now you have a reason to turn on Time Walker mode and go get it done. This gives people a reason to subscribe, stay subscribed, and be out in the world, which is one of the criticisms of the game right now, is that you have this gigantic world with all this stuff going on, but nobody's out there. People are buying boosts instead of going through the content that's been there for however long it's been there. People are bypassing the content. The World of Warcraft, huge world, blah, 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 but only the most current set of zones matter. Wouldn't it be nice if that were no longer the case. And suppose you wanted to go do some dailies in some old Burning Crusade zone that you used to like back in the day. You could do that. And it would actually not be a total face roll on all the mobs. But if you wanted to turn on God mode, you could just go turn off Time Walker mode, go back and steamroll everything. It's all about what you want to do to have fun. And in the case of the folks that are out steamrolling, like soloing old raids and stuff, they could do that without stepping on the toes of folks that may want to actually experience the story of all this stuff that's been in the game, but it's not the most current expansion. So once you're past the level bracket, it's game over. It's going to be effortless and not all that interesting. Call me a dreamer if you want, but just imagine what these kinds of features could do to this game. And then you might understand why I'm hoping that Classic WoW is just the beginning. Because it wouldn't take much to get World of Warcraft to support player freedom in ways comparable to ESO. And I think the WoW player base would be very, very, very appreciative of it. But who am I? I'm just some small YouTuber. This will probably get like 20 views or whatever, and it'll go nowhere. Or some big channel will plagiarize it or something like that. C'est la vie with this stuff. But hey, we can dream, can't we? Imagine a world where WoW Classic is just the beginning. Enjoy Classic, everybody. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.